lesson number 5. So we're only in chapter number 2 in our book. And that chapter number 2 begins on page number 24. Before I get started, looking at my personal calendar on today, and I had somebody's birthday on there. I see it up there today. Bob Fan's birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
But you know, and I was thinking about that when I looked at that, and this is kind of like the A group and the B group and your C. But I was thinking about that, Bob, and I was thinking it's going to be 93. 93. So I did the old Google, like 93 years ago. What happened in this world 93 years ago? Well, first of all, there were some bad things, Bob.
He's got a list.
Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor, and you know where that went to.
Yes.
Terrible, terrible period of life. Prohibition was repealed. And look at how many people's lives have been affected by that because of alcohol. Those are bad things, but they're good things. Franklin Roosevelt was elected president. In my opinion, probably the best president we ever had. And I think people thought of that too, because they gave him a 3rd term.
He is on that first one.
He what?
He is on that first one.
Okay. And then this is one I really, okay. The minimum wage law was adopted. 33 cents an hour.
Wow.
33 cents an hour. You probably get a few things for 33 cents an hour. But last of all, I think is great, is the Golden Gate Bridge construction began in 1933. 1933. Bob, you were as old as the Golden Gate Bridge. You're my Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, we've been over that 2 or 3 times. I do not like driving over that bridge. I do not like it at all. Windy, and you know. Been under a few times, that's okay. But anyhow, happy birthday. Many, many more. Anyhow, our lesson today is respect the persons. Verses 2, 1 through 3. I'm going to start with a little story. A university student named Bill decided to visit a church assembly located near the campus where he went to college. The church he visited was rather conservative and comprised of upper-class, older people. They had wanted to connect with the college students in the area, but had been able to do so. Bill walked into the assembly just as the preacher was beginning the Sunday morning message. The auditorium was full as he walked down the aisle looking for a seat. People were watching the preacher with one eye while keeping the other on the extremely unkempt, casual-looking, sandal-clad, long-haired young man with tats. You know what I mean by tats, don't you? With no seat to be found, Bill shrugged his shoulders and plopped down onto the carpet next to the front row seat. By now, everyone was totally distracted. Now, a respected older man left his seat and started toward the front. Everyone was thinking the same. You can't blame him if he corrects this disrespectful young man. Now, all eyes were on the old man and Bill. Even the preacher stopped the sermon. What happened next was something no one expected. The old man dropped to his knees and very carefully sat down on the floor next to Bill. He didn't want the young college student to sit alone and feel unaccepted. The people in the assembly were moved to tears. Finally, the preacher said, "What I am preaching about today, you will not remember. What you have just seen today, you will never forget." So I want to start with that, a little story. Sometimes I call those little ditties. And, I know there are parts of it that may not hold true today. I'm thinking, first of all, a full house of worshipers on a Sunday morning. I think that's most likely not going to happen today. Not this year here, but around the country. Recent statistics reveal that only 30% of our population attend weekly services on a Sunday. Less than 1/3 of our population. In the early 2000s, this figure was 42%. In 2000 is not that long ago, when you think about it. So my reason for sharing is because today we'll be discussing compassion, love, and concern for others. That's the gist of what we're going to, and it's under the title Respectful Persons. Any comments regarding my story before I move on?
I like it.
You like it? Good. One vote from the A group.
I second that.
So let's start by just reading all 13 verses today of our lesson, and I asked Suzanne if she will do that for us in the B group.
My brothers, as believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, don't show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in shabby clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing the fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, stand there or sit on the floor by my feet. Have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have insulted the poor. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones who are dragging you into courts? Are they not the ones who are slandering the noble name of him to whom you belong? If you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you're doing right. But if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. If you do not commit adultery, but do commit murder, you have become a lawbreaker. Speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom. Because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment.
Thank you, Suzanne. What James is going to deal with is how we treat people in different strata of society today. How do you treat the rich man? How do you treat the poor man? How do you treat the average person whom you meet today? These verses deal with some of it, God's war on poverty, and also God's war on riches. His war on poverty is a little different from our government, of course, the way they undertake it. So no matter which political party is office, neither the federal nor the state government have been able to deal successfully with this problem today. Verses 1 through 3 describe a typical Sunday morning service by two atypical visitors. James prefaces his description in verse 2 and 3 with a blunt admonition to not show partiality while professing to be a child of God. The assumption is both are strangers, which is about the only thing they had in common. One is apparently filthy rich, wearing a gold ring, which was probably very insignificant back in those days. And the other is apparently poor with filthy clothes and no gold ring. The only known difference between the two was their appearance. The rich man gets special attention and is offered a good place to sit. Our poor person gets shabby treatment, to stand or sit on the floor. This could have been an accurate example because there was wide disparity between the rich and the poor at the time that James wrote this. James was adamant about showing favoritism or partiality. Our workbook author, in the very first paragraph of today's study, states that pure, undefiled religion does not show partiality. We're all equal, we're all the same. Christianity is a religion of compassion, love, and concern for others. People may play favorites, but God doesn't. I love this statement. God does not play favorites. So, I'm going to start off right immediately. Let's answer question number 1 in our workbook. Who would like to answer question number 1? Read it and answer. Yes.
All people are created in the image of God.
You want to read it? Did you read it first?
Very great. Why is favoritism wrong in the Lord's church? Because all people are created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And we are to love everyone.
Any other answers?
Well, go ahead.
I just highlighted in the book, in paragraph 1, how one treats other people is vital to the service of Christ. Christianity is a religion of compassion, love, and concern for others. And I remember when those 2 chairs were first purchased and put in the foyer. It was the same time Tommy South preached on this kind of same subject. And I made the joke that we bought chairs for the rich man and the poor man, which they're identical.
Yeah.
And so taking the scripture in context, back then they had a problem we don't have today, and it kind of goes into the story you read. Their buildings were full, and they had seating was limited. But we don't have that problem today. So if a rich man and poor man would come in here today, they would everybody would have a seat. But the point is, you don't treat them. You don't disrespect the poor man, nor do you give extra treatment to the rich man.
Maybe our pews would be fuller if we exhibited a little more love, even toward one another, and particularly toward one another, but also toward the outside world.
Well, I thought about Isaac's lesson on Wednesday night, which was on equality. And the fact that everyone is equal, and it takes all of us together to make things happen. You know, we don't always see what someone is doing, and so like I said, no one person is better than the other because they might do more or do less because they have more or less capabilities than the other. So I really did relate our Wednesday study to this lesson. I really felt like there was a big correlation between the 2 lessons.
You know, another thing is, I know this comes from, well, your upbringing or the background or whatever. But when you have someone that is, or 2 people, all right, they're coming to service, and the more affluent, they feel like, well, you know, I'm just a little bit better than you, so I should be close to the front. But a poor man, when he comes in, he doesn't want to be too conspicuous.
Right.
So normally, he would pick a back seat anyway.
We are.
Well, I didn't say members.
But you took a
of the
bath sometime in the
congregation.
last 2 or 3 days.
Well, that's true.
But honestly, that is just normal for our society today.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think guests are gonna waltz right up to the front row. They're gonna find some place to blend
But
in.
we are also only looking at the physical. God rarely looks at the physical. So, you know, just because you look good and you smell good doesn't mean you are good. And you know, maybe you smell bad because you worked all day. I'm going to bring up John. John showed up one Wednesday in his work clothes. He still smelled good. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that.
We're talking about
Yes, but I mean, he apologized for wearing his work clothes. I was like, that's the last thing, you should be apologizing for. But yeah, I mean, realistic, we are the ones who care about what you're wearing. God cares about what's in your hearts.
And that being said, we will be accountable for our opinions and our
Exactly.
reactions to
Yeah.
that
So I would
situation.
say,
We will be accountable for it.
according to this last verse, we really need to be erring on the side of caution. So, we should be sort of, welcoming to everyone. Because we don't know what's inside.
We do agree.
If we only know what's
I
outside.
think we do. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that time. The Jewish officials often showed favoritism to the wealthy, as we read. They were divided into groups known as the Pharisees, we know them, the Sadducees, the Essenes, the Zealots, who basically rejected each other for various reasons. The law of Moses condemned partiality, and I gave somebody Deuteronomy 1:17. Can that person read that? Deuteronomy 1:17.
Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's. For the cause that is too hard for you, bring it unto me, and I will hear it.
Yeah, that's what I just heard from all of you there. And other references to partiality in the Bible can be found in Romans 2, chapter 2, verses 11 and 12.
Two, 11 and 12. For there is no partiality with God. For as many as have sinned without law will perish. For as many as have sinned without law will also perish without law. And as many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law.
We should be very happy that God doesn't respect persons.
Repeat that for the
We
hard
should be very happy that God is not a respecter of persons. I may not be here if he was.
Of course, Jesus not only told us to love all others, but also he showed us how he did it. And I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that because we know how Jesus, all the compassion he had with the lowly. I did have Matthew 9 through 13.
That's me.
Okay?
Let's see. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, "Follow me." So he rose and followed him. Now it happened as Jesus sat at the table in the house, that behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And when Jesus heard it, he said, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance.
Tax collectors, sinners, fishermen. Imagine the fishermen were probably not real high on the chart, but Jesus didn't take exception to any of them, and especially tax collectors. What we would do if we had somebody came in and was kind of known as a mobster, we never knew who would come to the door. How would we treat that person?
I don't know, I tell Jerry to pull her gun out. Cause he'd probably be up to no good.
Yeah, but then we got, on the flip side, would just the mayor of Bedford would come in, or our local delegate, the delegate would come in, how would we treat them?
They're not stealing our money, so I just.
There you go. There you go. I was gonna say, some of the delegates, especially when it comes to issues, we live out in Bonnetype County, and you all heard about the data center. And everybody's taking a piece. I mean, everybody's this or that, not in the middle. Big, big topic, but you have somebody, I can imagine that in some of the siblings there in Bedford County, where people have known each other for years, and now all of a sudden they're taking sides. How do you treat those people? But it's getting off the topic. Yeah, Jesus had compassion on everyone, no matter who they were and where they'd been. Even in his dying breath, he pardoned a career criminal who probably never said grace, much less had done anything to deserve it. Jesus loved everyone the same and told each of us to go and do the same. James observes there are those who clearly believe that some Christians are more equal than others. When the church is met for fellowship dinners or to celebrate the Lord's Supper, then preference was shown to the rich and the famous. They were given seats of special honor, just the kind of seats that Jesus said would not be awarded in his kingdom. For Mark 10, 35 through 40. Who has that? Mark 10, 35 through 40. Have a taker?
What is it?
Mark 10. I did not give you one, so you can pick up the one.
Well, what is it?
Mark
10.
10, verses 35 through 40.
Alright. And James and John, the two sons of Zebedee, came up to him, saying to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. And he said to them, What do you want me to do for you? And they said to him, Grant that we may sit in your glory, one on your right and one on your left. But Jesus said to them, You do not know what you are asking for. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? And they said to him, We are able. And Jesus said to them, The cup that I drink, you shall drink, and you shall be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized. But to sit on my right or on my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared.
Doesn't seem like a bad thing to ask, does it? Sit on the right and sit on the left.
They wanted to be special.
They want to be special. Special treatment. Our study guide author says favoritism means to lift one's face above another. He also states favoritism becomes a fault when a person responsible for giving judgment gives respect to a person's position, popularity, or circumstances instead of that person's intrinsic conditions. On page 24 of our study guide, if you want to turn to that page, our author lists 4 things that can contribute to our prejudices. If I can get 4 people to read one of those 4 on page 24.
I'll take the first one. Our background. What we hear in our homes, our schools, our community, and our offices, our environment is a strong molding force in developing our attitudes towards others.
I'll take the second. Our status in life, wealth, education, and position have a lot to do with our attitude toward others.
I'll go the third. Because of indoctrination, some have been taught to look down upon others because of race, lack of education, or because they are poor.
Because of bad experience in the past, they had an unfortunate experience with poor man, white man, black man, policeman, sailor, etc., and they still have a tendency to be untrusting.
Okay, let's take a few minutes to discuss some of those. Any of those. I'll tell you my experience. I've told you before, I come from a large family, very poor. My first 8th grade was in one school. 2 of us, 2 classes in one room. I only went to 4 rooms over 8 grades. And I went from a class, we actually had a little graduation ceremony. Went from a class of I thought it was only 8. Melody is correcting me saying it's 12. So maybe it's 12, 8 or 12. That's not very large. And I had to pick a high school to go to, and I was an athlete, so I didn't want to go to a little podunk school. So I went to the big school. So I went from class of 8 or 12, whichever one, to 155. Farm boy, poor, not good clothes. I did not stink. Not a stink, but anyhow, I was an outcast. And I don't know, even over 4 years, I became more accepted because I was an athlete. That's why it was. Because I was an athlete, more people got it. But most people tended to ignore me because I wasn't the same as them. So that's my example. Any other examples? Some of these things mentioned here, indoctrination. That was my status in life example.
I'm too young to remember it because I was a child, but I heard about it from my uncles and parents and stuff. But the civil rights movement, when you had the blacks sitting in the back of the bus, and you had separate water fountains for whites and blacks. Even that the theater y'all go to, the upper level was for blacks originally when it was built, and the lower level was for whites. And, you know, we kind of got all. I mean, it's a huge black eye on our nation, but we are one of few nations in the world that have freed slaves, where other nations still have them. So, you know, so it's just been as a nation we've grown from that.
Yeah. You know, with segue on what you're talking about, go back to my history. We had a school in Indianapolis. I lived an hour away in the country, but we had a school called Christmas Attucks. Christmas Attucks was an all-black high school. Now we're talking about the early 60s. Christmas Attucks had a wonderful men's basketball team. The player on there, maybe most of you heard of, called Oscar Robertson, was quite a basketball player. They had a wonderful team, and we could only get 3 channels on the TV, and one of the channels had Indiana high school basketball time at the high school basketball tournament on. I would watch that. All black team against predominantly other teams of the state that were white. My parents would question me, why are you watching that basketball game? And I'm not going to use words or anything, but why are you watching a ball team and rooting for them? And Oscar is a wonderful player. I love watching them. They're good. So I've had more than one experience myself in life because of it, many of these calls.
So I'm going to elaborate what you didn't say, which is the most important part.
Okay.
They won the state championship, and in the past, every team that ever won the state championship, they had a big parade, and they had a big to-do. When they won, nothing. They got nothing. No parade, nothing. Like what?
They
And
would
so,
put them on fire trucks. There was a circle in downtown Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I don't care if you were in South Bend and you won the championship, they still would give you that honor of putting you on the fire trucks and taking you around the circle to celebrate your victory.
so it was not until, I think, 40 years later, they
About 4 years ago.
well, okay, so more than that. They made it right.
Yeah.
And they invited all of them to come back. Well, now you're talking about old men. I'm sorry to say that, but old men. And so, was that right or was that wrong? I mean, they should have been recognized at the time.
And
So that's a
I'm going.
We'll probably headed off on a rabbit trail, but just in connection with that, we typically think of that kind of prejudice being prevalent in the South. Now, I don't think that Indiana is in a southern state. And, you know, where you grew up in a 4-room school, I grew up in a 3-room school, and we only used one of the rooms. And when I graduated, I was one of 5 out of the 8th grade, and going to a high school like you're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. All those kids all knew one another. They'd been together for 8
Exactly.
years before that.
Exactly.
And I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I integrated with them fairly quickly, and having grown up in Southern California, our schools were integrated, I don't know when, but before I started school in 1946. So if you lived in the school district, you went to it. So.
Yeah, favoritism means accept or, yeah.
Robin was.
I think it goes back to the first paragraph. The first paragraph that Richard read, our background, what we hear in our homes, schools, community, and offices. You know, so what you teach your children is how, you know, they're going to feel about themselves and others. If you keep telling your kid he's stupid, you know, what's he gonna do? He's gonna be angry. He's gonna just think he can't do anything. You know, if you tell your kids that, you know, certain people are no good, they're gonna believe it.
Or you don't play with this person.
Yeah,
And I've heard that from Melody being part of the military family. That
but the Bible doesn't teach that. I mean, they taught it where the Jews were supposed to keep the Jews, but that was Old Testament. New Testament, they didn't say that. They said, oh, if you're gonna marry a Christian. Not marry a Jew or marry a Greek, or, you know, don't stick to your own kind. It's not West Side Story. But yeah, I mean, but even back then, you know, Dad grew up poor with white folk, black folk. They were all poor. It didn't matter what color you were. You were all in the same boat. You know, and, you know, I think we've moved, hopefully, beyond sort of that. And in, like, being in the military, you know, you were all the same wherever you lived. You lived near people who made the same amount of money as your dad. You know,
Well,
the
and
difference is how
And you did not get to pick who your neighbor was.
No.
You did not.
We all didn't look alike.
Yeah. But, you know, it's also, you know, on the personal level. You know, with your family and who you choose to associate with. I mean, why would you want to hang out with people who, you know, tell you you can't do anything? You're no good. Or you'll never get that promotion. Because, you know, you're not smart enough, or you're a woman, or whatever.
Blasphemy.
Yes, and God doesn't teach that. Man teaches that.
Favoritism means accept or reject one based on face value and first impressions. Scripture makes it clear that God does not judge based on face value, but heart value. Somebody mentioned that. And his accompanying behavior. Does somebody have Acts 10, 34 and 35?
Yeah, I do.
I have it.
Okay, yeah, too. I thought so.
Go ahead.
Acts 10,
Yes.
34 and 35.
Okay, then Peter opened his mouth and said, truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him.
Thank you. The word partiality means literally make judgments based on external factors such as appearance, social status, race, etc. Samuel in the Bible, the Old Testament is a good example. Samuel learned that God doesn't do this when he, Samuel, was sent to anoint Israel's second king. Somebody have 1 Samuel 16, 6 and 7?
I have that. When they entered, they looked at Elam and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is standing before him. But then the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance, or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God does not see as the man sees, since man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart.
What was the issue there? Do you remember? Sure you do. Basically what you read there.
Yeah. But I mean,
They were ready to pick a king based upon what?
appearance.
Looks and appearance, yeah. We don't know what he looked like, but, you know, he's tall, stature, good looking, and this has to be the person. This has to be the one.
Well, that's how they picked Saul. I mean, it says Saul was tall and good looking.
What happened there?
Yeah, that didn't work out so well.
That didn't work out too well. And who did end up? Was this? Mistakes are made because we make. I've seen that happen in business and others because somebody that had good gifts, had a gift of gab, or maybe it was appearance. In my career, I saw that. People put into position. This has to be the best one. Right? Look, how can we go wrong with him or her?
Or the boss's son, or that never works out well.
Pardon?
The boss's son,
The boss is like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna go there. I had that same thing too. I had that same thing in my career. I had the boss's son. I had the son's boss. They put the son's boss under me. Boy, that didn't work out very well. How do you tell your boss that your father is not very good for the position? Can somebody read and answer question number 6 for us?
Name some motives that people would have for showing favoritism. Just like we talked about, seeking promotion, social favors, just popularity, some that I came up with.
Stature, relationship, as we just heard discussed.
Yeah, expectations too, where if you think someone's wealthy, if you're, even in a church environment or anything where, or say you're like a nonprofit where you're looking for money, if you feel like you're being good to someone, you're expecting them to share some of that money. There's a underlying motive there, ulterior motive sometimes too.
Nepotism. Didn't have that down. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. I mentioned, Boston's father working for me all of a sudden. Nepotism happened quite a bit in government, it seems like. And well, I'm down to a quarter till, and Jody, this is good news probably because I'm not going to be able to finish this and have to finish this next week. That means I got another week of doing this, and you're probably looking for people to fill that position.
You think you can finish in 5 minutes?
No. I want to do this justice. So let's go through verse 5. Verse 5 reminds us God has chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom. For one thing, the Bible says that God has a special place in his heart for the poor. Proverbs 14:31 says, whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needs honors him. The law of Moses taught Israel repeatedly never to take advantage of the poor, but to render help when needed. We'll talk more about this next week. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your attendance. And thanks for your participation. I'm sorry I didn't get finished. Pardon me?
So I
That's good.
figured out what the lesson is next.
Jody, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say,